a post, just wanting to talk to people, get some insight on different incomes and areas. It's primarily a music channel, so there's a lot of different people that paying attention. I'm just trying to bring value to people.
Yeah.
So I'm curious because a bunch of people messaged you, said that I should interview you. It messaged me saying that I should interview you.
Yeah, that was really cool too. I saw, I had a bunch of people forward me the direct message. I was like, oh man, that'd be dope. And then I checked out the channel. I was like, oh, I've actually seen this a couple of times.
Oh, really?
You've had some pretty cool people on here too.
Yeah, who'd you see?
Who did you recently have? Trouble Kid. So yeah, Trouble Kid.
Yeah.
I know being in and around, just hanging around the community. Eric Garcia, man, that's the guy who really plugged me on this thing. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
That's my boxing coach. Yeah. Shout out to Eric Garcia.
Yeah, how long you been going there?
With Eric, I think we're on year 7.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Year 7.
So what do you do for work?
I own it's a consulting business for attorneys, law firms.
So you give service to attorneys, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of unique, right? Because usually people think attorneys are the consultants type of thing, but I help attorneys open up law firms.
Okay.
Onboarding, hiring, developing internal operating systems, things like that.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
What does that process look like? Where do your clients come from? And
So the legal community is kind of pretty small.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, in the Southland, particularly for accident injury attorneys, workers' comp, employment law, things like that. I've been in the legal field now for 20 years.
Okay.
So the whole backstory on how I got into it.
Yeah.
But essentially, it kind of just comes down to word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Working around attorneys, working with attorneys. I have an undergrad degree law myself. So
Okay.
yeah. So some of the attorneys I work with have become judges. So I've been around a long time. So as far as ascertaining clients, as far as law firms or attorneys, it's just through straight, kind of like what you're doing here.
Mm-hmm.
Straight networking, getting out there, going to mixers, going to conventions. So that's
Gotcha.
how I personally ascertain clients.
Okay. And then how did you get in? How did you get started?
So basically, my sister was a secretary for a large law firm.
Mm-hmm.
They're statewide. They have 12 different branches. And I was a troubled youth. So after so many instances of not making it through schooling, she ended up pushing to get me a job in the mailroom.
Mm-hmm.
And that was back in high school, so I was 15 and a half.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up going after, it's not something celebratory, but after being kicked out of so many schools so many times, I ended up going to this program. I'm not sure you've heard of it. It's called Options for Youth.
Mm-hmm.
There's one right here, not too far from here. There's a couple locations throughout the South.
I think there used to be one right here.
Yeah.
In the corner.
Right next door, yeah, right. So I ended up going to Options for Youth, and they give you a work permit as a part of, it's kind of like a last ditch effort. Okay, you go to school part-time, and if you want to get a work permit, we're credentialed to give you a work permit. So my sister ended up getting me a job through the law firm in the mailroom with the work permit, and it kind of took off from there.
How did it take off from there? You met people?
Yeah.
You got inspired? What did you see?
Yeah, so I was really lucky. With attorneys, there's this stigma about attorneys, they're, I don't want to say, pencil pushing is kind of an old school term, but pencil pushing nerds, and there's some pretty tapped in attorneys. They kind of, a lot of them come from minority backgrounds too. Mm-hmm. So the reason how that incorporates into my story is that by the time a lot of these attorneys were licensed themselves, they looked at me okay, here's a troubled youth. So they kind of took kind to me, basically. Mm-hmm. So at the firms that I've worked at, I kind of, you just kind of stand out a little bit. I had tattoos already by the time I was 16, 17. So I guess they just kind of drew to me in a sense. Mm-hmm. And then after X amount of years just working as a staff member, that's when I went back to school and did an undergrad degree in law. And then once I graduated from school, that's when I started reaching out to attorneys and trying to start this consulting business for sure.
Okay, so you were working in the mailroom. You were able to kind of observe attorneys coming in and out, right, and build a relationship. Was there anyone in particular that taught you something that, what was it that kind of made you realize that that it was a good career path or a possible career path?
Yeah, it took a while. There's nobody individual. I think it was just more just using my own observation myself. Like, so when you're working in the mailroom, you're not doing anything like legally related.
Yeah.
So the first tier of personnel that you're looking up to is like secretaries, and then from secretaries to paralegal. So as I'm like going through the mail, like I'm working as a file clerk, you learn a little bit. I graduated to a secretary, and then you kind of learn that there's a lot of money in the legal field in itself. Not just, I mean, you don't have to be a lawyer, you don't have to be a judge. You could just graduate through the tiers of a law firm and earn a pretty self-sustained, salary. I think growing up how I grew up, with like a, hustler's mindset, you're kind of trying to find the dollar in any circumstance that you're in, right? So as I was graduating up through the positions, I started realizing what attorneys were really kind of looking for. And I realized that the ceiling was pretty high, whether you got licensed or not after law school, that you could really make some money. So to answer your question, it was more seeing that attorneys like to focus on the actual case.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of money in the support of that.
Right, building the actual client service business, right?
Exactly.
Building like a pipeline of clients and.
Exactly. Marketing, internal infrastructure,
Yeah.
Onboarding with new clients, and then also case management too, with actually dealing with the client themselves on the day-to-day, because the attorney's availability can be slim between courts, depositions, things like that.
It makes sense.
Yeah, so I just cultivated a business around that.
Got it. Okay. What's a paralegal?
A paralegal is typically somebody who has a degree but didn't pass the bar, or didn't take the bar, I should say.
Okay.
So they call it like a ticket, right? Like in order I don't know if you know, so the bar is an actual exam. There's an analogy that there's this, if you look in the courtroom, like Pomona, LA, there's like a bar, like with a door swivel on it. I don't know if it's kind of like an analogy, like when you pass the bar, that's the bar that you pass, and you get to go sit down. So
Yeah.
it's kind of different, yeah.
So typically, paralegal will be doing like a lot of casework behind the scenes. That's what I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically there is you notice there's a lot of structure that upholds like a law firm, the business of a law firm, right?
Yeah.
And then, so what were kind of the steps that you took? You said like kind of moving up the ladder within the company.
A little preachy, but consistency. Like you have to figure out if this is an area that can make you money, and I knew that was an area that could make me money. So it's just basically just, level one stuff, showing up, attendance, asking the right questions, high production, low drama. Don't be a nuisance in the office.
For sure.
So if you just stick it out long enough, you'll eventually graduate. Your knowledge of law will increase. Whether you decide to go to school, because there's secretaries too. So there's like legal secretaries who might not have as much insight or knowledge about law itself. But yeah, honestly, it's just kind of, if you're going to get involved in the legal game, a lot of it's just attendance and learning about the practice in which that firm practices, and continually gradually growing up to the next, file clerk, secretary, paralegal,
Sure.
stuff like that.
Okay. Are you from around here? How old are you? Where did you grow up?
I'm 36. I was born in Baldwin Park, and I was raised in Riverside.
Okay, for sure.
Yeah.
And what was it like for you growing up? You mentioned you were like getting kicked out of school, getting into trouble. What was it like for you?
Growing up, well, I come from an adverse background. I always say like I'm the majority story of the minority community. I think a lot of people can relate to that. Riverside, it was largely a middle to lower income class, environment, just like most places, whether it's around here, LA, San Diego, OC. So it was a very humble upbringing, but I did come from an adverse background in terms of what most people identify as like a broken home. But yeah.
You feel like that played a factor in like your success today, like made you be able to tolerate certain things, or did it help you with learning how to communicate better, or just like motivation? Like how do you think that has affected you?
I think I learned some good principles. as far as like growing up in a impoverished community. You don't have a lot, so the first thing, the premise of everything is like what? Respect, right? Like respect, like common respect, you know, addressing people when they address you. As far as like internal stuff inside of the household, I just know that a lot of our issues predicated from financial issues.
Yeah.
So I think that just built like a survival instinct in terms of like, if I get this, meaning money, it'll solve a lot of problems. Later down the line, I learned that wasn't like all the way true, but yeah, those are a couple of like the core principles that probably taught me coming from that kind of environment.
Were you trying to like make money as a kid, like, or was it more once you started working that you started realizing there was more opportunity?
You know, sadly, I think it was like a survival instinct thing. I think money for a lot of us comes from like a survival instinct.
Yeah.
I think we glamorize it, but realistically, it's a necessity.
Absolutely.
And our hustle, like a lot of the time, stems just from survival itself.
Yeah. This natural instinct is what you're saying.
Yeah, natural instinct. Yeah, humane instinct. Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned consistency earlier. Like, how important is work ethic compared to talent, do you think?
I think it's really important because you're gonna have to accept the fact that some people are just really talented, and it's the truth. Some people just have natural talent, you know, capabilities, or just talented in general. So work ethic is like it's like a personal choice, you know, and work ethic comes from being able to move irrespective of talent or not around you,
Right.
you know. Yeah.
So do you have a team that helps you like build businesses for lawyers?
No.
It's just you?
Just me.
Okay.
I don't, because again, it comes down to consistency and experience. Like, it's like, I'm not braggadocious about much. I'm like a normal guy, but when it comes to this genre, this field, like, you know, what is everybody saying in the sports world? I'm him. Yeah. You have to have a little bit. You have to have the experience and the knowledge for sure.
Okay. So are you helping them build out a team? Like, you're helping them find a secretary, but that's their team. That's not your team.
Yeah, exactly. So like onboard, it comes down to like, I always kind of compartmentalize it into 3 different categories. So we have like operating systems, right? So operating systems is anywhere from legal softwares to actually hiring personnel, putting ads out and doing interviews, and then actually setting up like a strategic caseload that the team is going to follow. And then I'm also incorporated if an attorney or a law firm comes in and brings like a marketing team, meeting with them and ensuring that they're targeting the right demographic. And then also too, because of just having my own experience and my degree, I still can do case management. So there's times I'll get a call from a law firm like, hey, we have this problematic case, it's a workers' comp claim, you know, can we bring you in as an extra set of eyes to help us through the litigation process? That's not so much in terms of developing a team or an office, but it's like a third layer of way to bring income to the company.
Got it. To your company, right? Okay. And then what other ways do you support the lawyer? So like you're supporting a lawyer with like trying to build their own firm typically?
Yeah. So when you become a lawyer, once you graduate law school and you pass the bar, it doesn't really teach you how to be a lawyer. It teaches you the law. It doesn't teach you how to be a lawyer. And it doesn't teach you the logistics of running a law firm.
Definitely.
So you can also be an attorney who branched out, right? So let's say you graduated law school, became a lawyer, got licensed, and you went and worked for some major corporate firm, and you were an associate, because there's tiers of attorneys too, associate, partner, managing partner, and you branch out on your own. You're going to need somebody to help you build the business itself, because you're going to end up drowning trying to do an actual practice and building a business itself.
Do you have experience in the advertising and marketing side of it as well?
Only insofar as it comes to like branding and demographics, like actually sitting down and writing coding. No.
Okay, so like so typically you mentioned like injury and like a couple other sectors, right? What are you talking about, like a demographic that you're looking for, like how you get those ads in front of people, or?
So so with the marketing guys and how they incorporate it in law firms, to answer your question, I'm giving them the data basically, and what they take that data and how they plug it into like SEO or like ad campaigns or social media. That's kind of their world.
Okay.
I just provide the right information to them, because sometimes if you get a marketing company, they're really smart guys. Marketing guys are really smart guys, dude. I don't know if you've ever engaged with them, but marketing dudes really have. It's crazy to see synonymous, basically synonymous elements of two businesses that have nothing to do with each other, but you kind of know the same thing. Marketing guys are actually really smart. I've learned to have a really profound respect for marketing guys. But they're also just, creating content, creating campaigns, but they need the actual information. What's your clientele? Like, what are your clients saying? Client relations, and then you kind of give them the subjective information so they can incorporate it into like an objective campaign, what to deliver for that law firm.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What can you talk about, like a success story? Like what is like from a failing business to kind of like a thriving business? Like what's the difference?
Client relations. Client relations. I think that in like the modern time, well, to answer your question as far as like a law firm, I'm blessed enough, and again, I don't want to sound braggadocious or arrogant. Every firm that I've worked with has gone on to just be in the surplus. So I'm lucky, and knock on wood, that I don't have like a rags to riches story. It's usually an attorney that is like a sole practitioner, which is like $1 million term for one person who's practicing, that will come to me and say, hey, like I want to bring you on board to help build my firm, and we start from the ground up. Literally probably no office. But yeah, so I don't really have too many comparative examples for something from like where it went from bad to good.
Yeah.
It's usually from brand new to better.
Right.
So
Cool. And you've been doing that specifically for how long?
This I've been doing for like 8 years.
Okay.
I did it on my own, and this is why I kind of do try to shed a little bit of game. I did it on my own, basically just as an individual. No tax, like federal tax ID number, no incorporation, nothing. I just did it on my own for like 3 years, because it's just me. And then when I started to take it really serious, I incorporated it about 4.5, 5 years ago.
Got it. And do you charge a flat fee or you're commission based?
There's different billing structures. If it's a project or an assignment, it's a flat fee. I guess they're all flat fees, right? Because I'm not like sharing percentages, not like profit sharing. But it depends on what so I guess, yeah, it's all pretty much flat fee. The payment structure is what will change. Like if I get a brand new law firm and it's like a young attorney, like 29, 30 years old, fresh out of law school, I'm not going to charge you like an upfront cost. I'm going to go ahead and like scale it to 6 months down the line. Your payment, so on and so forth.
Like it would start lower and go up?
I'd give that, it's kind of like just gauging any other project, like in the sense of like kind of seeing what goes into it, how many man hours you're going to put, and you put a price tag on it, and you put a due date, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any time where like you go into a negotiation like that and it's not worth it for you on your end, or you pretty much take on every client that comes to you?
No, it's usually by the time I get, like in terms of the clientele, because again it's a lot of word of mouth and handshaking, by the time if I were to get approach or solicit a client,
they're ready, and
I kind of know if I want to work with them. So it's a lot of casual, passive conversation before anything definitive is talked about.
Got it. You would already have some type of acquaintance or relationship with them.
Yeah. It's like there's professional conversation, right? Where it's like you want to come off and like, hey, this is my business. These are the services that we offer. But candidly speaking, in this genre of business, it's you kind of already know this person before you're going to get into those talks. So I haven't had an instance where I'm saying like, this is what we charge, and where it's more like a sale. It's not really too much like that. It's more casual conversation, leading up to, it's like an attorney saying, hey, I've heard about, you doing, you providing some sort of like, startup aid, and I'm thinking about going out on my own or something like that.
Got it.
Yeah.
Do you think networking is important?
Yeah.
What's kind of like some of the examples, like you just meeting people through mutual friends, or like are there specific trade shows or events or anything like that leads to clientele?
Right now, we're all live from the gutter. That was
Yeah.
networking.
Yeah, for sure.
But specifically towards what we do, yeah, you people like to do business with who they like. You know what I mean? And if and there, so I've been subject to it too, where it's like I'm a little standoffish, where it's like I know of an attorney or law firm and like kind of what they stand for. It's like, man, I don't really want to do business with those guys. I kind of know what their get down is, and it's not stylistically something that's going to align with me. But you have to meet those people though too,
Right.
in order to get to the ones that you want to do business with. And the thing is, you have to maintain, when you're out there, you have to maintain that affability, right? That likability, irrespective of whether you want to do business with somebody or not. And I think that's where a lot of people stumble too. It's like they have a product, service, business, artistry that they want to solicit to the general public, but it's not really the general public. They want to solicit to the people that only they like. And you can't do that. You got to network equally with everybody.
Okay. And be willing to work with those people, or?
If you have a business, well, there's tiers of it. In the beginning of any business, like, I'd be lying if I said that, 10 years ago, if a law firm wanted to reach out to me and, contract me for an assignment, that I would say no. That was, I guess there's tiers to it. If you're a brand new business, it would be ill-advised for you to turn down business.
Right.
It takes money to make money. Then you kind of level up to a place where you have your, concrete clientele, and you feel a little bit more comfortable, and that will graduate you to where you can start being a little bit more selective about the clientele that you take on. But I wouldn't advise anybody in any of those tiers to be unlikable or to be in disdain or towards anybody like who could be a potential client.
So you focus primarily on getting these law firms or sole proprietors off the ground, and then you kind of like make your peace with them. Are you constantly involved?
It varies. No pun intended. No pun intended, but it's case by case.
Yeah.
It's case by case. There's some firms that you'll have a lasting relationship with for a long time. There's some firms where it's a one and done. Like, hey, I need a declaration of readiness filed, or I need something like that, and it's a one and done assignment. So it's case by case.
Was it hard? Like at first, I'm guessing you had less clients when you first started than now, or have you always pretty much?
So the transition was this. I was working for not the same firm, obviously, that I started with, because I started in 2003 in that mailroom situation. When I decided to veer off, it was after I graduated, after I did my whole thing. I was still working for a firm at that time. So yeah, most definitely when I veered off, I was taking anything and everything that I could get from any law firm or attorney at all.
And that was like contract work at that point. You weren't working like actually on salary for a firm.
When I left, so I was working for a law firm and I was on salary. I was an in-house employee. Like I was actually actually working for a law firm.
Yeah.
I borrowed from myself, and that was one of those like cliches, like bet on yourself, like and just go out there. And I did that. So I got an X amount of money and just left the firm, went out on my own.
And then where did your first client come from?
Technically speaking, it was like doing intakes for attorneys. It wasn't like the sexiest story. It was just like.
No, but how did you make that connection? Like it was someone you already knew from working in the prior industry, business? Yeah. Okay.
So what happened was I got really lucky too. So there's in every law firm, in every sort of practice, there's two sides, right? So this was the firm that I was working for was like insurance defense. So when you're working insurance defense, I'm constantly talking to plaintiffs' attorneys, right? Because you're on the opposite side. And it's not as contentious as like the movies make it seem, where it's like, you hate the other side or whatever. A lot of times you grow to like these people, or you still have a job to do. It's like F them and whoever looks like them because you have a client, but you build a reputation. So when I left the defense firm, all I did was reach out to those guys because that's actually for my style of business, or what I was trying to build in terms of business. That was actually the target clientele was the other side. So when I left that firm, all I started doing was saturating my contacts with, hey man, I left such and such, LLP, and I'm going out on my own to do contractual work. you guys have anything, let me know. And they kind of, I didn't really have to explain what that consisted of. They knew.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it started to trickle in. And then I ended up getting a major account, and I was with them for like 5 years.
Nice.
One major law firm, yeah.
Okay, for
And
sure.
that was cool.
Where would you like to grow? Like, what improvements would you like to make in your business? You want to work with bigger clients, or like where do you want to take it? Just keep doing what you're doing.
That, you know what? No, I think it's one of those things where I'm really proud to say it's kind of like I came, I saw, I conquered. I have one, major attorney I'm working with right now. I like her a lot. I consider her a friend too, and I think that it's cool. And I think that the next step for me is, I don't want to say to get out of the legal field, but like start seeking some diversity.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that too. Do you have like an urge to kind of apply those business building techniques in other industries, or you plan on staying here?
No, 100%. And that's kind of what I peep to the youngsters and the homies now is like, take an intro to law class. Don't even take an intro to law class. Go buy an intro to law book, because like no matter what you're doing, that understanding of how our jurisprudence system works, of how our legislative branch works, believe it or not, is going to help you in your business. But to answer your question, I want to take this knowledge and kind of test myself in terms of diversifying the portfolio a little bit. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, whether that's restaurantpreneurship as they call it, or getting in terms of music labels. I don't know. I'm not making a claim as to what it's going to be, but I want to see what I can do out there in the open market. For sure.
What's you don't know what industry interests you the most that you would want to go into next?
It's really hard to stay away from bars. Just because, man, like, it's like those things like coming up in like the culture. Yeah. It's like the bars are like quick flips. And I don't even mean that with like a negative connotation as like quick flip. Look at the surplus price. Look at the net that they're making on these bottles and things like that. So I don't know if that's what it's going to be in, but I think I'm still a little bit young. I'm aging a little bit, but I'm still young enough to where that interests me.
Yeah. My two of my dad's brothers, and I think they have two other business partners also. They have a restaurant bar in Uptown Whittier. Oh, nice. It's called the Spin Lounge.
Oh yeah, I've been there.
You've been there before?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think they stayed open partially. They were the ones that were open the most in 2020.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
And because the Dodgers went to the World Series, so.
Yeah. So I like grew up going there for everybody's birthdays and stuff.
Right on. Yeah, that's a cool spot.
But I think it's cool. I remember when they were starting the business, everybody was like, "Dang, like that's kind of like a big jump." But it's cool that it worked out for them.
I don't know what the returns are. I mean, there's a lot that goes into opening, especially like a liquor license business. Yeah. But I don't know. I just see it as like, what's the worst that's going to happen type of thing. Yeah. Either you make a fun adventure out of it, and let's say it fails, and I'm not saying to go in with that mindset, but if it fails, there's a decent likelihood that you're going to get your money back.
I don't know if it's the same now as it was back then, but I remember them saying like, if more than 30% or more than 50% of your sales are food sales, and if more than a certain percentage of the square footage is also like tabled, then you don't need a license, or you need like a lower tier liquor license or something like that.
I think it comes down to, that, and that's kind of like even with the legal application. I know where to find those ordinances at. I know where to find those codes at.
Big advantage.
Yeah, big advantage. Yeah, I know if I don't know a sector of law, I know where to go find it. Yeah. Like I had this thing where I had moved into this apartment. It's in the IE, but they were like labeling it as a luxury apartment, and it was a nice spot. And when I first moved in, they had charged me a late fee over some, like an automatic payment not going through. I'm just using it as an example. I refused to. It was $75. Like, it was not a big deal. But the way they treated the situation, like I refused to like want to pay the $75. And I know nothing about tenant law really, but I knew where to find the information. I knew where to find the case law that supported my position. And I saved myself a whopping $75, but they ended up you know what I mean? So no matter like whether it's restaurant or record label, like if you have a general understanding of law, that's what I'm excited to kind of go implore out there into like maybe some new ventures. For examples like that. If I don't know it, I know where to find it.
What's the name of your company?
Litigation.
Litigation. That's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, like leading in litigation.
Do you have like a mission statement, or what do you specialize in?
No.
Yeah.
No. I have like a lyric in my email.
Okay, that's cool.
But no, I don't, you know, like how you can put like the automated,
Yeah.
but no, I don't have like a mission statement or anything.
Okay. And so typically your clients are coming to you. You're never like saying, hey, this is what I do. These are my services.
It's usually through like, honestly, like mixing, networking.
Mm.
You know, I think it's kind of funny to say this. Lawyers like to party, dude.
Yeah.
Lawyers.
That makes sense.
Lawyers love to party, dude.
Mm-hmm.
They throw some good parties. The last major party I went to, I'm talking about jaw dropping.
Mm-hmm.
Like name a local record label couldn't compete with this in San Diego.
Mm.
Yeah, they like to party. So, you know, if you make face and you and you're cool and you know you're calm and you know you're fun to hang out with,
Yeah.
it's the best way to get business in
Makes
any
sense.
arena.
Yeah.
In any arena.
Makes sense. You have any advice for someone who wants to get into the same business as you?
Specifically for law, it depends on the ambitions. If you're trying to be a lawyer, then just gun ho down on school, and because you're going to need all of that and more.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to need all of 100. You know.
What if I want to be a lawyer and I want to build a firm?
Then hire a good paralegal.
Mm.
I hire a good paralegal and pay. It pays to play, you know.
Yeah.
And there's some really good paralegals out there, and you need that infrastructure. If you think that because you went to law school and you got a license and you passed the bar and you went to a JD and an undergrad, that you know how to do business, maybe if you're branching off from another major law firm, you could do that. But if you're straight off you just passed the bar and you're a fresh kid, don't underestimate what it takes to build a law firm. If you're trying to shoot for something where you want to work in the court system, you want to do certified interpreting for courts, you want to become a paralegal, stuff like that. I would say go to school, but also do an internship. Even if it takes you longer to graduate, work at the same time. Because learning the law and learning to practice the law are two different things. It's like doctors when they come out of medical school, like they have to go do a residency and then they go to specialization, right? You're not going to go to an orthopedic doctor which handles like, you know, knees, back, shoulders for a cardiovascular issue, right? So the same thing is if you're kind of trying to become like a paralegal or a case manager or something, you need to go work for a firm that specializes in one sector of law while you're going to school. Because I see it all the time where people are going to like, whether it's Fullerton or West Coast University, and they're like, I'm gonna become a paralegal because they make a lot of money. You're not gonna get the result in terms of salary compensation that you think by going in without having any experience in one particular sector of law. So I would say education, internship.
For sure. Is there paralegals that make more than attorneys?
Associates, yeah, probably. I would say so. I think with paralegals you're gonna cap. It could be a pretty high cap, but yeah, I would say so. There's probably some. Partners and things like that, probably not, but associates maybe.
If you're a partner at a law firm, are you getting like a little piece of the whole pie?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's usually where partnerships go bad. That's usually where law firms go have trouble.
Why is that?
Because somebody's probably hiding money. You know, you have different levels. It depends on how that partnership is infrastructured. I don't know. I'd have to look into it, like, because they have these things called like junior partners or senior partners.
Yeah.
I don't know what the difference is personally, even with all the experience and years I've been in it. But that's usually where partnerships and law firms go awry. Is somebody's either holding out on money or hiding money.
Yeah. It makes sense. Okay. That's pretty much all the questions I got. Do you have any inspiring words? Because you mentioned you came from like an adverse background and you made a way in a professional industry, in the law industry. And you have any advice for someone who maybe doesn't know what they want to do or like doesn't know how to get out of their situation?
Yeah, you know, for the longest time I was always looking for like thought-provoking questions like that, but typically people like know the answers. And that's why I use that term, the majority. I'm the majority in the minority community. Like off the top, like, you know, I mean, my mom was 5150, my dad was in CDC, you know. I was state raised part of the time, you know, live with family part of the time. I went to the whole nine. The only good advice that I got was just listening to myself. and being honest with myself. You know,
For sure.
I think a lot of, and also too, stay away from that need to feel like you have to be a rags to riches story. People get caught up like that all the time. I got homies that are, you know, that are still suffering from the anguish of choices where they felt like they had to prove something. You know, you can be whoever you want to be. So I guess, like I said, I kind of just put it all in one cluster there. But listen to yourself. Stay away from the narrative of the general public and focus on the narrative that's going on inside of you, and just continue to grind it out and just be honest with yourself.
For sure.
That's it.
For sure. Yeah. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you, man.
Thanks for coming through.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.